is Caroline Hill next, Chair of Young Labour. Caroline.
It is really amazing to have an invitation to stand and talk along someone like Oslo and Chris. I will speak super loudly for you, very clearly. It is really great to be standing next to them because they are clearly so well versed in this. I am just a young activist, so forgive me if I do not use as many long words. But what I really wanted to talk about was, of course, young people. That is what I do as Chair of Young Labour all the time. Because I think if we're talking about how we want to remedy austerity, how we want to talk about what we're going to achieve at the next election, then young people and their attitude towards austerity is something that I think is really, really important. I work as a primary school teacher, not a former teacher, still am one every single day, and I get to see from the front line essentially what effect cuts are having to public services and the way that people receive them. So what I want to actually talk to you about today is resignation. Because it's one thing to talk about austerity, rejecting austerity, saying that there is an alternative. But in these circles, that's fine. And people are happy to say, well, you know what, there is an alternative, there is an alternative funding situation. But from what I am seeing every day, I am part of a whole generation that has been given austerity for the past 6 years as we've reached the labour market, as we've reached education, higher education, or the world of the apprenticeship. And we are told that underfunded, depleting, and poorly organised public services are what we can expect, and that's just the way it is. And there are so many young people who are quite happy to accept that that is just the way it is and we're going to crack on, because you don't have any other choice. So I think the first thing we need to talk about is pay and conditions. Because the amount of young people that are going into the labour market now and saying, well, I'm just going to take what I can get because I need it, they are not sitting there and saying, well, wait a second, I'm not getting my holiday entitlement, I'm not using my holiday entitlement, I'm getting paid a minimum wage that doesn't even cover my rent. They're not arguing against that. And I think what Osman was saying about union density and union coverage in workplaces, but also membership, is huge in this instant. Young people are not joining their union, and I don't know if that's because they are either uninformed as to what it could bring them, or they're simply not covered by many unions. That is having a huge effect on what young people expect from their working life these days. Now, the difference is that many young people are going into a completely different economy to that of a few decades ago. They're going into different kinds of workplaces. So many of my friends work as executive assistants, whatever that means. And it's all right for me, as a primary school teacher in a very heavily unionised workplace, to say, well, you should join your union, because public services unions do tend to have a better coverage. But to those who are working for PR companies, or, I don't know, advertising, or even, I don't know, some kind of energy, something, private something, there is no coverage. So there is no argument for what they should be receiving. And that is going to have a huge effect for generations. Now, that means that in terms of pay and conditions, not only are young people going in saying, well, I'm going to take what I can get, when they get there, they are not fighting for more. And this is not just young people, this is anyone that is working in these new economies. And that is going to have a huge knock-on effect. We see it even in public services. I know there are NHS workers, probably in this very room, who know that they have given their working life to something that they really believe in. And it's the same with teaching. You go in there not because it's well paid, but because you really, really want to do it. It's a vocation. And because it's a vocation, should you be arguing for more pay? Should you say that your hours should be worth more because you're doing it because you love it? Of course you should. But unfortunately, we have a generation that are not taught to fight for more. And they're actually not shown by our politicians that they can fight for more. They're told to shut up and get on with it. That the NHS might be falling apart at the seams, but it's the cornerstone of our country, so get on with it. I think we also need to talk about the passivity that people have towards their education system. They know that now they have to pay a ridiculous amount of money and deal with the debt that comes with, because they need it. If you don't have that university qualification, if you don't have those A-levels and that system that works you to death, then you're not going to get a job, so you've got to get on with it. Now I think that kind of leads me best on to Jeremy Corbyn, because he has finally started to say, you don't just have to get on with it, there is an alternative. But the thing is, my colleagues, who, admittedly, I work in a lovely left-wing primary school in North London, where we have a lovely accepting community with a million different nationalities, and it does seem like we are that North London liberal elite. But we also, even my colleagues, are saying, why are we not hearing Jeremy Corbyn enough? Like, why, considering he has these ideals, why are we not hearing from him? Why is not everyone shouting from the rooftops that actually there is an alternative to a Conservative government who can promise decent funding for decent public services because they will prioritise that? And that's where we need to go from here, I think. We need to talk about how we can amplify Jeremy Corbyn's voice, the Labour Party's voice. And we can talk about why it's not happening, but I think we need to take another route. We have spoken in the past few months at length to many supporters from different sides of the Labour Party about why Jeremy's voice is not being heard. Well, it's enough for that, I think. I think we've now got 4 years-ish to start making a case. It might be less than that, you're right. We need to make that case so that young people are not just getting on. They're saying, actually, we should have more. We should have housing. We should have decent pay. We shouldn't have to work ourselves to death for jobs that we love, and we shouldn't have to be paid too little for jobs that we've just had to take. And we need to make sure that young people know that they should be joining a union, they should be working together as part of our movement, and that we can take them to that better vision of what our public services and what pay and work can be.